I go to prison and I'm like, Mom, I need to preach. I think God's got a call in my life. I don't know what's happening. Like, his family forgave me. Where does that happen? And they like in today's world, the family not knowing me, giving me absolute radical, literally undeniable grace. And I say this, I still contact to them. We still talk right now. They're always on my posts when you see us posting videos. We're in contact with them. I've visited them since I've been out. Like, this family forgave me for taking the life of their daughter. See, grace became more than a word. It became an experience. And for some of us in here, grace has only been a word for so long. And I need you to begin to allow it to become the experience. That thing that you know wasn't right. That thing that you know you were resisting. That guilt, that shame. That's what God wants you to understand. He is touching and He is covering and He is changing. You see, grace is power. And when you begin to identify your grace, it can carry you through. I said, Mom, I think God's got a call. I don't know will you send me a Bible? Like a leather one. I've never had a good Bible. It's this one right here. And actually, I've been watching Lou Giglio, If the Earth Was a Golf Ball. If you haven't watched it, it's amazing. Incredible God. Like an evangelist named Lou Giglio, he was always preaching, he had this little tiny Bible. And I was like, actually, Mom, I need you to send me 2 leather Bibles, a big one and a small one. I'm still working on self-control, y'all. She sent me both. When the Bibles come, there's 7 billion people on the planet. I had told God when this all began to happen, God, if you're real, show me, prove it. I'm all in. I got to know. As I began to read the book, before I got this Bible, the gospel of Christ and Him dying on the cross, dying on the stake and being resurrected and hanging on that piece of wood, that tree. And He said there's a time that if a seed stays alive, it remains alone, but if it falls into the ground, it can reproduce multiple fruit. And as I began to reflect, because see, this is what's important about your individual story. See, your story is your power to help you overcome. A lot of you get ashamed of your past. You shouldn't be. Your past is your weapon, y'all. I'm here to tell you, your story of what you've been through, you're somebody else's miracle. When you allow God to move in your life, the things that God has touched in your life and transformed you in, that's that testimony that as you begin to share what God has done in your life, you become somebody else's miracle, because there are people that God will have you intersect with that are dealing with the same issues. And when they can tangibly see a person who has struggled through the same things saying, listen, Christ has got me through it, you become their miracle. I get this Bible sent to me. There's 7 billion people on the planet. As I started studying the gospel, I had this picture of my wreck of hitting this tree and Priscilla dying and the family forgiving me. Like, I had this picture of what Christ has done, of Him hanging on the tree and Him dying and Him forgiving me and Him saying if a seed stays alive, it remains alone, but if it goes into the ground, it multiplies. And that through Priscilla's death and all that I experienced, that I was going to just surrender and say, God, I'm all in. Like, her name, Priscilla Owens, that name meant a lot to me. It carried a lot of weight because I was going to keep a promise. I had broken a lot of promises to people in the past, but in that moment, as I was forgiven and working through this, I was not going to break this promise with everything in my power to the Owens family. And I was going to do all that I can to try to literally radically believe that I could help change the world somehow, some way. And my mom sends me this Bible and I get it. Up top, don't touch that slide until I tell you. Do not. I'm excited. I'm giddy. I don't know how to use a study Bible. There's all these little subnotes and titles. So I go to the beginning, not Genesis, the table of contents. True story. And I freeze. I'm literally just frozen. And there's this poem on my introduction page written from the ink from the editor. On my introduction page of the greatest love story ever written in front of me, I have this poem. But the printing press, the editor picked it. And it says, give me the Bible, holy message shining. The light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining till night vanishes in the eternal day. And it was written by a hymn writer, actually it was an old school teacher she had written this poem and they turned it into a hymn. And as I see it, I'm paralyzed because there's 7 billion people on the planet and I'm sitting in prison locked up for reckless homicide. And my passenger Priscilla Owens is dead. And I'm now everything that I thought growing up that I had to fight back through being a failure and my life was over, and now my choices didn't only affect me but they affected the Owens family. And as I'm sitting in here, that name meant so much, and I'm saying, God, prove to me, like, I need to know that you're real. I get a Bible delivered right in front of me, and on the introduction page of The Greatest Love Story, that name Priscilla meant so much to me. I get a poem, and the hymn writer and the author of that poem, show that slide. I'm not a mathematician, but I've talked to him. The probability of me taking the life of a woman named Priscilla Owens and then finding myself incarcerated, facing 15 years, and asking randomly for my mom to send me a Bible. And I get a Bible that comes delivered to me. And on the introduction page, there is this poem written by a woman with the exact same name of my wreck. See, when you walk through here today, you won't deny his existence. You're just going to have a choice of saying, you know what, 2020, from this moment forward, like, I'm going to live a life that is no longer on self-preservation, but totally surrendered. I'm totally all in, trusting God in every one of my struggles, every one of my situations. Like, I promise you, like, that's the choice that every one of you is. I don't care. Some of you, maybe you've been walking in the church and you've been serving faithfully. That's great. But I'm even going to challenge you that this word is sharper than a two-edged sword, that you yourself can even say, you know what, God, I want to surrender more. I want to have less self-preservation. I want to trust you in all things, not some things, but in all things. Because I promise you, he is faithful if you can trust him in all things. What happened in my situation to move through some of these points? I didn't do 15 years. Indiana, the prison system started a program, God's Favor Ain't Fair. And when they started the program, they wanted to take a communicator, a felon, an inmate, and let him start traveling the state of Indiana and speaking in high schools and colleges and conferences. And see, I was working and I was trusting God, and doors began to open, and I was selected, and I found myself leaving the prison in street clothes while incarcerated, while a reckless homicide felon, man. I'm leaving all across the state of Indiana, speaking and communicating to 5,000 to 7,000 people. And again, this is all about him. This is the Jesus meeting, man. Jesus will do the exact same things for every single one of us. We just have to surrender and trust him. You are not the exception.